I guess I can start. Personally, and this is probably I just probably haven't done the discipline enough, honestly. But words is one of those events that I don't necessarily try to strategize too much for. I think for like images or for numbers or even names, there's a little bit more strategizing that goes on. But for me, at least, words is kind of, you know, it's still relatively difficult to get a 50 consistently. And so I tend to try to just go a little bit safer when I'm playing matches with words. And in personal training, it's a little bit different. You just kind of try to go as fast as you can. But in terms of games for words, I usually try to just kind of go kind of slow but steady and try to go for 50.
And so for words, for me it's different because it's right now my favorite discipline, and I also in matches, in ranked matches, try always to not go too fast because it's always hard to get 50. But in the last months, I'm always trying to get faster. But as Alex just said, the personal training is different to matches, and so you also need to adapt to your opponent. So yeah, I still, like Alex said, in words, strategies is less important compared to like images and numbers, where it's really easy to get all the data correct. So yeah. Okay, so there's no real secret. The main thing is not, I think it's not just how much you train, but how you train, because my main focus is always to get faster than the time before. So I usually don't care too much about accuracy. I just try to always get faster, except before the competition, because I need to adapt my speed to trying to have the best performance compared to the optimal speed. But usually, apart from competitions, I always try to go faster. And most of the time, I have bad results because maybe, let's say, in speed numbers, I try way too much, and then I have a bad score. Or again, in memory league, I most of the time don't complete all the data because I just try to focus on speed. And I think that's the main thing that made my improvements really fast.
Okay, so
and that's also something that I learned from Alex, because by reading his blog, in which he often talks about speed reels and going faster, and so yeah.
And so in terms of your question, that's an interesting question. I don't think I've really ever thought about it that way, because usually, like Andrea said, it's more thinking like, oh, does the memory sports help the medicine? Mm-hmm. And I think I tend to agree with Andrea. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. I think you could make the argument that, like, just having to kind of get through medical school and having to kind of improve your time management and your discipline in various ways does kind of help it. But like Andrea said, that's also pretty largely offset by just not having as much time. In terms of like the actual, if you were to take sort of the time management out of the equation, I kind of agree with him that I don't think that there's that many changes, maybe some small ones. Okay. But in terms of changing the diet or the lifestyle, I don't know that I've necessarily done that as much. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that there are certain things that I definitely, having like worked in the emergency room occasionally, there's certain activities that I definitely avoid, like riding four-wheelers or motorcycles or stuff. So in that sense, maybe I've kept myself alive.
Okay.
I guess I can start. Yeah. I think for me, a lot of the training is just to really get the whole process to be as automatic as possible. So the truth is, I don't necessarily think about it very much. For me, it's just as simple as trying to see the image and just throw it in the location as fast as possible. And there are some images, like, I guess they, would probably be considered my worst images or slower images, where I still like kind of subconsciously sort of sound it out from the card pair. And then some of them, it just kind of, the image just kind of comes right there. Especially I think for the face card pairs where, you know, they're not really part of my normal number system. Those tend to be slower. But other than that, it really is pretty much as simple as trying to just see the image and then put it in the location as quick as possible. That's really all that's going through my head.
So you are not exactly like reading the images, it just pops out like that? Like
sort of, I would say most of them do, but there are some exceptions.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Andrea?
Yeah, that's the same for me. The only thing I want to add is that the one thing that I think makes a big difference is to not subvocalize, but just think about the images. Because if you start to think about the words and pronounce the words in your mouth or in your head, this I think will make you slower. And this is related to, I mean, sub 20. Going faster than that, it's really hard if you keep subvocalizing. I don't know if it's the same for Alex, but I personally don't vocalize.
Yeah, I tried to. What was I going to say? I mean, I think part of what I was going to say is the speed and just like focusing on practicing speed and speed drills kind of goes along with that, sort of hand in hand, like Andrea was saying. You know, when you try to push your speed as fast as possible, there comes to a point where you can't subvocalize anymore if you try to just see the image as fast as possible. So training that, I think, kind of organically removes the subvocalization. Yeah. I still am very impressed by anyone who uses PAO to go that fast. So it's not, you know, putting each card pair down is not really, you know, as fast.
Yeah, that's true, but you don't need to think about the numbers of images per location because it's every time it's 3. You don't need to pick the images from a super big system because it's a lot smaller. So it's you know, the disadvantage of using PAO are balanced by the advantages of using PAO.
Yeah, I didn't mean that to kind of harp on PAO at all. I think like there was definitely a time where I was convinced that a 2-card system was better, and I think that people like Andrea and people like, you know, Shajir have kind of just, you know, taken that notion away from me. So I don't believe that anymore. But just as someone who had sort of kind of given up on PAO and gone down this path and not really trained PAO for years and years, it's still very impressive to me, is really all I was trying to say.
Thank you so much.
I actually think that PAO is a little bit better. Right now, all the 4 world records of cards are done with PAO, but I think that for numbers, 3 digits is better than PAO. And also all the records were done with PAO. Sorry, with 3 digits. So yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? So do you think that numbers for 3 digits is still better because you just don't have those kind of extra things like, you know, say using full 2700 images or having to do the change locus thing? Is that the idea?
That's the point, because for 2-card system, you must have one problem. You have to choose between a variable, numbers of images per location, and a super big system of almost 3000. So one of these 2, you will have this, and I think it's both are really bad because you want to have the perfect numbers of images per location, and you want to have all the images clear in your head, and it's hard if you have so much. So that's why I think that PAO is, at least for my point of view, is a little bit better. But for 3 digits, you don't have this kind of problems because the system, yeah, it's big, but not too much. And the numbers of images per location is up to you. So that's why I think that there's this difference between cards and numbers.
I think that I'm fully prepared to lose because I have no choice. I mean, Andrea, you know, just for the last several years has just been kind of coming up so fast and getting better so quickly. and just getting way better than I ever was. So, I think it's for me, it's I don't feel like I really have anything to lose because you know, I haven't been training, as much as I did in the past. And, so there's less pressure in that sense. And I don't say that to take away from Andrea at all. Cause I think that, like I said, even if I was kind of at my peak amount of training, I still would have a very, very hard time. But I'm all that to say, I'm prepared to lose, but I'm just going to try to, have fun with it. I think it's a fun idea and I was happy to kind of be a part of it. And just kind of give it the best I can, and we'll just see what happens.
Andrea?
So first of all, thanks, Alex, for that. I don't think I'm that ready to lose. I have it's a really hard match, and I will do my best, and we will see. But honestly, I don't really have an idea of the actual level of Alex. Because obviously he's not, he didn't compete recently, also in Memory League, so I don't know exactly his level. So I still don't know what to expect exactly.
Me neither. We had talked about the matches like numbers and cards and images being a little bit more important in terms of strategy. And I think that just kind of holds true for any match, including this one. So you don't want to be in a position where you say, okay, I'm going to play a little bit safer, but then your safe time ends up being a little bit slower than, what time they're going for. So if it's someone who's doing cards and their average time is 25 seconds, then I'll probably feel okay going a little bit slower and just playing it safe on the cards. I think for Andrea, I say I would approach it similarly, but all of the times I'm going to have to basically try to go as fast as I possibly can to have any confidence that I'm going to have a faster time. And even still, I probably won't. So, I mean, for those events, I think it's going to have to be, in the moment, I either make a decision about going as fast as I can or just playing it safe completely and seeing what happens. I don't know. I hope I'm ready. In terms of locations, which is always something you have to think about being ready, I think I have enough. Because I always kind of made sure that I had enough to do several days of the XMT back in the day. In terms of the mental stamina, it's been a long time since I've really, done a long match or done a competition that requires you to be focused for a long time. So we'll just have to see. I'm as curious as anybody.
And Andrea, I think you just had a three hours match against Simon. So that was very long. First set was 9-7 or something like that. So what do you think about this mental stamina thing?
I think I am ready for that because I'm used to that for the last match against Simon and the remote championship, because day 2 was really, really long. So yeah, I think I'm ready for that. So to learn it I think it is just practice with classical memorization and speed drills. That's the main thing. And also something that you want to do is to start to use the images that you already have before having the whole system. Because obviously when you start to build your 1000 images system to when you finish, it takes some time. So I think you want to start to practice the images that you already created before finishing it. And then when you have your system, you should start to practice as much as possible with memorization and speed drills. And I don't know exactly how much, maybe 2 or 3 months to start to become faster than I was before, but it's really hard to say.
And Alex?
I think it was pretty similar for me, because when I stopped using the PAO system, I just stopped it completely and just tried to do the other system 100%. For the first like couple weeks, what I would do is when I made the system, I would try to just run through it in order, just like basically once a day. It usually took me like 20 minutes or so, just trying to run through it from memory. And then after I think those first couple weeks, I started to just practice trying to doing random drills with it and just reading images. So I think I did try to do a little practice by the like sets of hundreds, sort of like Andrea was saying, doing a little bit of practice before you just finish, going through the entire system. And I think it was pretty similar for me. I want to say it took 3 or 4 months. It might have been like 4 or 5 months though, honestly. I can't really remember, to get back to where I was before with PAO. So it was an investment for sure. But I mean, I absolutely would do the same thing again if I had to do it again.
I think it's words, and then maybe images, and then names.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's the podium maybe.
And Alex, the same question.
I mean, I think my worst event is images, and then probably words. But I mean, that's a toss up. Words is my least favorite event. I like doing images, but I'm not very good at it. My favorite event, honestly though, my favorite events are cards and numbers, and all the other ones kind of are just occupy the same space for me.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you think? What is Andrea's weakest discipline?
He doesn't have any. That's the problem. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I think that the event that probably is that I probably have the best chance in is cards. But I mean, really, even in cards, I mean, the differences are it could be a toss up, and I think all the other ones, I mean, Andrea's super consistent in everything, so it's really even hard for me to pick that. I think international names is probably one of his weaker ones, based on what I've seen. I mean, who knows what people are doing, what he's doing in practice personally these days. But other than that, I mean, there are no really weaknesses that I can see.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a combination of things. It's certainly true that I was lucky. I got to win 3 world championships, and then the kind of the motivation to keep going for a 4th was a little bit less for me. So I'm not going to deny that. There have been times when I've kind of been more motivated, and I still like, I try to practice every day still. So it's not been something that I've ever really given up. But so part of it is the motivation kind of went down a little bit. And then also just having a lot of work things to do that were conflicting was a problem. So, around the time of the last few big competitions, I just, have had to work, and there's just no flexibility the way there was in medical school. And so that's been kind of a problem. Most recently, I think I would have liked to compete in the last couple of memory league tournaments, and even the remote championship. But like Hannes mentioned, I was moving about a month and a half ago, and so that kind of made things pretty difficult. I just wouldn't have had enough time to really train or be ready for those. Yeah, I mean, I think these days for me, I enjoy the memory league events really a lot still, and so practicing those kind of on a daily basis for me is still very fun, and so that's kind of what I focused on. And I just kind of, I don't necessarily have a plan to the way that I've been involved in things or practiced. It's just kind of been whatever is interesting for me in the moment. So that's kind of what I've done.
Going faster also improves your accuracy,
Sure.
Not just your speed, because then if you slow down, you will be a lot more comfortable with that speed, which will result in a better accuracy. So going faster, I think it's always the answer, both if you want to improve your speed and your accuracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree basically 100%. If you try to go for accuracy, the problem is that it's just too easy to fall into a rut, and you don't necessarily improve. Whereas if you go faster, not only are you training yourself to go faster, but you expose the holes that are in your accuracy system, and so you can kind of cover those up. I wish I could trash talk, but I feel like it's just going to come off as kind of sad. Yeah, I mean, I'm again, I just want to say, like, I'm thankful for Hannes for putting this together. I think it's a really cool idea. I wish I was kind of, could give Andrea a little bit more of a run for his money. I think it's going to be really difficult. But, I'm going to do the best I can, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I hope everyone tunes in next weekend, and it should be fun.
Thank you. And Andrea?
Yeah, that's the same for me. I've been waiting to compete against Alex for a long time. So that's I'm happy that we will finally compete against each other, because we just met once in Memory League with just one game in names the last week, and this was the first and only match that we competed against each other.